Good early morning, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. Yes, indeed. It's an early morning, but we are excited. We've got Formula One. We got the Spanish Grand Prix from Barcelona coming up here in just about an hour. And the intro said myself, Bob Varsha, and Jonathan Green. Well, Jonathan Green is not going to be with us at all today. He's doing some Trans Am up in Detroit. So he's not going to join us. And Bob Varsha, I watched Bob Varsha last night on CBS because he's doing Formula E in Jakarta and he's on a plane. And he promised that he might try to zoom in from the plane. So we'll see if that happens. But we have this morning, we've got Mr. Dave O'Neill, former Haas F1 team manager. Mr. O'Neill, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. Looking forward to the race as ever. After quite an exciting qualifying yesterday.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, former Haas F1 team manager and part owner of S's Racing here in Austin, Texas, and very excited to have you, Mr. O'Neill, and been appreciating your input this season. We didn't get you as much last year. You are a busy man, but I'm very excited to have you here. And also, we have a young guest in the studio here in Austin. We have a little young race driver from Austin, Texas, who is making his way up the ladder and doing a fantastic job. And watching Mr. Ryan Sheehan. And Ryan, what are you, 4 points out of the championship lead in the FR Americas?
Yeah, 4 points back from first. Super close championship so far. Hopefully we can make up those 4 points and then spread the gap a little bit and
Well,
make it not so close.
we've been excited to watch your career, and that is impressive, young man. So very excited. We'd love to get driver's perspective that we're going to get from you today. So, but we had lots to talk about, and Chris Medland, of course, is on site in Barcelona, and we're going to get his microphone on sometime here this morning soon. But we got lots to talk about because, like you alluded to, Dave, we had a great qualifying and really struggles up and down the grid and shook things up quite a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Gasly's places that he moved back to put Hamilton to fourth, which is, you give that man a hair, he'll take a mile. So he's there. We've also got the weather to worry about, but we have a strong Alpine team, I think, this weekend. And
Yeah.
Ocon, he has the sniff. He's done business before, so he'll be in the hunt for sure. I think Verstappen's on a different planet, as we discussed yesterday. So, not that I'd like to say it, but P1's taken care of. So it'll be down to the spoils of second and third to see who can do what they can. Hulkenberg, again, strong race car, strong driver, lots of experience. He shouldn't be discounted for a decent finish today.
Yeah, and I do want to pause on Verstappen right now because you said he's on another planet, and absolutely rightly so. And he's just been so impressive. And I still feel like I've said this at least once or twice this season. I feel like Verstappen is just driving the car just fast enough to have a nice, comfortable lead. And I feel like we still don't know how fast that car is. And it's quite a contrast to Checo, who we'll talk about. But we've got a clip from Max Verstappen after yesterday's qualifying, and I want to play that now.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable the whole weekend again to drive. We really got the car in a good window, and yeah, of course, then in qualifying when you can really push it to the limit, yeah, we got that lap out of it. So, of course, very pleased with that. But of course, the points are tomorrow's, and that's where we have to really focus on. But hopefully, if you have a good first lap, then we can settle into our own pace and yeah, can do our own race.
You mentioned having a good first, start and first lap. It's a long run down to turn one. You yourself know that having, gone toe-to-toe with Lewis here in 2021. What's the game plan for, that initial, start to try and stay ahead?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just a clean getaway. But even then, even if we lose the position, I think we have a fast car and we can challenge them again afterwards. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not too worried about it.
I'm not too worried about it. I think he just backs up what I've been saying. I mean, Dave, I I know we've had some dominant performances from like Lewis Hamilton in the last few years and everything, but this season, maybe just Max combined with that car, it just seems like we've this is just almost on another level, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen team performances. Rosberg and Hamilton. They're always very very close to each other. But Max is different. He's eaten up his teammate. He's put him to the side. And his comments about the scoring of points on tomorrow, today as it is. That's what he's after. He's collecting those points. He's moving further away from anyone. But I was reading another article yesterday about what he said, how he's enjoying his driving as well. And he talks about the last turn at Barcelona. And if anyone's familiar with it, there's 14 turns at the circuit. The last corner is a very very fast corner coming onto the straight. And he kind of talks about the car is when the F1 car becomes an F1 car is on the final turn as you come onto the straight. As it grips up and he feels it in his neck, and he's allowed to go flat out around that corner. So he's enjoying himself. And when you're enjoying yourself, you obviously put yourself in a different place as well. If you're struggling, trying to get that time in, you're worrying about other things, but he's clearly enjoying himself, and we can see the results.
I think any race driver would be enjoying themselves in that car right now. Since I say that, and since Checo maybe right now after the last couple of races, but we've got a possible weather going on in Barcelona, and we have an on-site weatherman here today. Mr. Medland, how's the weather out there?
I tell you, so I'm stood, thanks again to Pirelli's Wi-Fi, right in the middle of the paddock, pretty much right in the very center of it. And I am on the cloud line. So to my right, beautiful blue sky, sunshine down towards turn one. To my left, really dark gray clouds coming in from that direction. Now, it's been like that for a couple of hours now. It's threatening, but as the rain seems to get closer to the track, it seems to kind of fizzle out a little bit. But then we're getting big pockets of showers popping up elsewhere. So it genuinely is impossible to call right now. There's a chance we could have a downpour before the race starts. There's a chance it could just look dark around the outside the final corner for the whole race, but it's actually sunny and warm the whole way through. I could not call it right now because it's not moving quickly, but it is heading this way. And I just think a little bit more breeze and we'll get something pretty strong.
Well, I know that Formula One is the pinnacle of technology, but I don't know if Red Bull has been able to control the weather yet, but that may be the only possibility. Mr. Medland, I just want to make sure everybody knows who you are. He is our roving F1 reporter, writes for Racer Magazine, racer.com, writes for Formula1.com, required reading before every Formula One race, his What to Watch For article on F1.com. But Chris, yeah, we've had some news overnight, haven't we? Had some people starting from the back of the actually starting from pit lane, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. The whole back row, basically. So the big headline was Charles Leclerc because he said there was something wrong with his car. Ferrari said last night that because of Parc Fermé, they weren't going to be able to really investigate properly until this morning. So what they decided to do was to basically remove the whole rear end of that car and replace it. New gearbox, some setup changes as well. And that means because it's not the exact same spec that started qualifying, he has to start from the pit lane. And I think part of those changes were to try and help overtaking as well, if he's going to have to fight through the field. Then Logan Sargent's done the same, suspension and brake cooling changes for him. So he would have been 20th and Leclerc 19th. Now they'll both start from the pit lane and Leclerc will be ahead because he qualified ahead. So essentially, we've just got 18 cars on the grid and the back row has disappeared and they'll start from the pit lane. So won't cost them a huge amount. Actually, they could look like geniuses if it does start to rain in the next 15, 20 minutes, because they could then make more adaptations, more changes, because they'll already be in the pit lane and they can change their setup. So they'll be praying for rain.
Yeah. And so will several other people, everyone but Max Verstappen, I suppose. But speaking of Charles Leclerc, we have a clip from him. Let's hear that real quick.
I was completely sure that I was out, to be honest, after the feeling I had during Q1. The car was... I think there's something wrong. We will check the car tonight, but I would be very surprised if the car was fine. It's the left-hand corners for me that was a disaster. Just the balance was extremely difficult. Yeah, we'll check that and try to understand to have a proper car like I had this morning for tomorrow.
So this morning it was fine. It's just this afternoon it's changed.
Oh yeah. This morning was actually the feeling was really good this morning, but for some reason there was just something strange in.
Are you running the upgrade still, or is it just Carlos?
Yes, I am, but it's not the upgrades. I mean, I was running it also yesterday, and everything was feeling fine. So there was just something off for this session, and we need to understand what was it.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, and by the way, that interview was, of course, right after qualifying yesterday. But Chris, we're seeing some TV shots, and we see exactly what you described. When they swing the camera to the right, it's blue sky. Swing it to the left, and it looks like weather's imminent. So who knows what's going to happen? But Chris, any other news overnight?
Yeah, well, firstly, as I stand here and as I said about how it's looking, even just being on air with you guys just now, the cloud.
Chris has wandered away from the Wi-Fi, from the Pirelli Wi-Fi. He's taken 3 steps to
Chris, come back.
take 3 steps back to your left, Chris, because we've lost you from the Wi-Fi.
Have you got me back now?
Yes, you're back. You're back.
There we go. I didn't actually move from it, but yeah, it did disconnect. So, and I only knew because I could hear you guys. So, technology. This was a race. Anyone who was listening to us last year, we had some issues with this as well. It's just a big crowd can cause some traffic issues, but it does also really hammer the mobile network here because we're outside of Barcelona, so it's not the kind of core of the city that's getting to feed all the phone systems. But yeah, so I was just saying that the cloud cover has come over even more. So I do think we're going to get something. I do think it is going to rain at some stage, but how heavy and how much and when is going to be the big question. For some more news overnight, it's actually, John, you'd asked me while I was doing some digging about new teams. And specifically, obviously, a big interest will be around Andretti Cadillac. But the FIA confirmed to me this morning that they have closed applications now. So they've got all the submissions of interest from potential new entrants, and they're going through all of the details with each team, maybe clarifying certain things, asking certain questions about funding or plans for the future. They want them to be carbon neutral from 2030. They want them to have a certain impact on the sport from a societal point of view as well. So all of these things, they're back and forthing now, doing their due diligence. The FIA said they wouldn't say how many teams are in that process now, but there are multiple. And that there'll be no further updates on it until essentially this section's complete. So it was quite a few months that they left the application kind of system open for, but that has now closed. So no team can come to them today and say, oh, we want to join F1. Too late, you missed the boat.
Okay, well, Chris, I don't know if you heard at the top of the show, but in studio today, we have a young race driver, Ryan Sheehan from Austin, Texas, who's now battling for the championship in FR Americas, the F3 series. And when you said new teams, Ryan couldn't help it. His eyebrows and his eyes got really big. So so anyway, well and I did shoot Chris an email overnight talking about, hey, we haven't really talked about Andretti and other teams. So we will definitely be keeping our finger on the pulse of that situation because I mean, obviously with Ford coming in with Red Bull powertrain and all that, and Andretti Cadillac, it's exciting times. And we've seen lots of rumors of various billionaires and companies wanting to get involved in Formula One. And man, I saw the ratings, Chris, for Monaco. I don't have them right in front of me, but man, they were big last week. And it looks like, the interest continues.
Yeah, I think it's ESPN's highest average rating for the Monaco Grand Prix. And I want to say the average is 1.7 million viewers, which it is big in F1 terms in America. So it does show that it is continuing to grow. I know it pales into insignificance when we talk about Thursday night football or something like that. But from F1 in American terms, it's big numbers.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, coming up after this, Chris, I know you're stuck to the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to let you loose. I know you did an interview with Gunther Steiner that we're going to play that after this break. And go see what you can find, and we'll catch up with you later.
Sounds good. See you guys.
All right. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after a quick break. All right, we're still live on the YouTubes. We've got some of the usual folks getting up early with us, T&W and Mike Bowles, Kevin Kelly. Good morning, gentlemen. Kevin Kelly sent us a really interesting stat that I need to dig up. It was
Chris is
something.
not live still, is he?
No, Chris is running around now. He's probably not on the Wi-Fi. No.
I was just wondering if we got down to the new rule about why Gasly didn't get any points for, like a double.
Yeah, for a double impeding penalty in one day and no license points. You're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
Maybe I'll
ask
look at
Chris.
that. We'll look at the new rules. So.
Yeah, we'll get his take on that for sure.
I think the interesting bit as well about Leclerc's car is, for them to change the rear end, they must have thought they've found something. You don't typically guess by just pointing at something and saying, "Oh, that must be it." So there's a couple of things that probably could have gone wrong. There could be the gearbox case is carbon, so they might think that's got soft or got a crack or delamination in it somehow. There could be a damper, or there could have been a mistake. The wrong caution bar could have been put in. And they found that out in the toolbox. That normally when something like that happens, you go through your suite of tools. Set up equipment, etc., and see if there has been a mistake made on that side. And then the other thing is he could have quite easily just lost a bit of aero. One of the side vanes around the side pod area, front of the car. Something.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I'm going to come back to that. You got the Gunther clip?
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Mr. Gunther Steiner, for bringing us back from the break. And speaking of Gunther Steiner, Chris caught up with him before we went on air, and we have a clip from Chris Medland interviewing Mr. Steiner. Let's hear that.
So, Gunther, as we stand here in the paddock, the way you're looking is very dark and grey. Behind you is gorgeous blue sky and sunshine. What are you expecting from this one?
If I just would know, I'm asking you what you expect, because I don't know, because it also depends if it starts to, if we know the train is coming. Obviously we will start from the pit lane with Kevin and change his setup to a proper rain setup. So it's very, it's pretty tense in the moment to see what is happening, but I have no idea. And it's coming, then it's dissipating again. It's I don't know. And when we take yesterday, nobody expected rain and it came. So I have no idea. So I don't know yet.
It's going to be fun watching the skies, but what are you hoping for? Because you've got Nico starting in 7th place, and he's been great all weekend.
Yeah, we are hoping for points. I mean, hopefully he's got a good start, and gets a clean start, and then we can stay there. Maybe we cannot stay there. There's a few fast cars behind us, but anyway, it's not over, because our long run on Friday wasn't too bad.
I was going to say, would dry be better then in Nico's case and wet for Kevin?
I could go both ways, you never know what is better. I mean, it's never better or worse. It's just you need to get lucky and have an opportunity.
I'll let you go and watch the radar. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I didn't ask Chris about the potential problems that Mr. Steiner had, but before I talk about that, because we discussed it on the show yesterday, but can't you hear the relationship that Chris has formed with all these folks? I mean, Gunther, you could almost hear him smiling, Dave. I know you spent many years shoulder to shoulder with Steiner on the Haas F1 team. Sounds like Chris has a great relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Gunther's pretty respectful of anyone, even if they give him a hard time. He just puts it down to their job. They're doing their job, but like he always says, if you're rude, that changes the game as well. So he's Chris. I mean, Chris is good, isn't he? Yeah, so. He can go and talk to anyone and get a decent answer out of them. So we're very lucky to have him running around the paddock. Well, standing by Pirelli at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I alluded to this. So there was a statement released by the Haas F1 team overnight about Gunther Steiner, and what this is an apology. He talked about the stewards, and essentially what he said is that the stewards were not paid professionals, and why are we having unpaid volunteers at the highest level of motorsport, the pinnacle of motorsport, and he didn't call out any one particular steward. He didn't even call out an incident. He was just basically expressing an opinion about how this should work. And they released a statement overnight, and I'll read that here. It says, yesterday, June 3rd, I attended a steward's hearing concerning comments I made during a press conference last week, June 1st. I expressed to the stewards my disappointment and disagreement with the decision taken by the Monaco stewards last weekend. The stewards informed me they had no issues with people disagreeing with my decisions, but were more concerned about the interpretation that had been placed on some of my comments. I explained to the stewards that I had not intended to offend anyone and that the use of certain words could have been open to interpretation or misunderstood by some people. I told the stewards that I apologize for my statements were misunderstood or caused to hurt anyone. It was not my intention. I repeat that apology here. Dave, we were talking about this before we went on air, and you made a really good comment about that, about he was basically, he got his apology in, but he also was able to express his opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a point. You know, the hundreds of millions or billions, as we're talking about, is spent in Formula One. And you don't have a professional panel, shall we say, making the decisions. I think he has a point. I mean, he hasn't changed at all since he first started with Haas. He's always had a problem about it and the way decisions have come to be made. And of course, you know, a lot of these people haven't run teams before, maybe haven't been drivers, so they haven't been in the mix when the decisions need to be made and what surrounds them. But the point being that he said it's out there, and maybe something can be done about it.
Yeah.
What he's done.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I mean, about them maybe stepping up a notch and paying people and putting some parameters around that.
Well, I mean, I've been in the stewards' room several times, and you tend to go in them when you're further down the grid because that's where a lot of the chaos happens. And I won't name names, but there has been, times where there's been previous relationships with stewards and drivers that haven't seen eye to eye outside of racing that has affected decisions in the stewards' room, and there's pretty much not a lot you can do about it once it gets to that point. So, you need more than one. You need three, and you need three that kind of have been doing it for a while, maybe ex-team members, maybe drivers, and maybe a lawyer as well who understands how to read the rules. And I think those people should travel with the circus for the 23 races and even be there for testing to understand the build up to it, and understand the politics. You probably even need someone like Chris involved in it as well, but certainly paid professionals to make decisions makes a huge difference when you get the wrong or a bad call over a race weekend. It can change the trend for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about some more. There's so much to talk about with qualifying that I want to get to, but Mike on YouTube asked a good question. I think basically this is to you, Dave. He says, what is required to qualify as a steward right now?
Well,
it's probably a big question.
Well, yeah, to qualify, I don't think there is any qualifications. It's mainly, some older drivers that go into it, and there isn't a qualification process you can apply to be a steward. It's okay, would you like to do it this weekend if you know someone in the paddock type thing, and maybe it's changed, but from how it used to be a couple of years ago, that was pretty much what the process was. The answer.
Well, let's talk about yesterday because it was another great qualifying, 2 in a row. Monaco was great. Spanish Grand Prix now was fantastic. And we have a really nicely sprinkled up grid a little bit because, Carlos Sainz, I think that's his best qualifying of the year in second, and Lando Norris up in third. So it was very exciting because there was lots of mistakes and stuff. So, and we do have some clips. In fact, if Casey's ready, let's hear Carlos Sainz because he is in starting second today. Let's hear from Carlos.
P2 qualifying here at home, that's got to feel special.
It is very special. I think it's the maximum we could do today. We put ourselves in the best possible position to try and get a podium tomorrow, which I think still will be tough with the Mercedes, the Astons, and Checo coming from behind. But today, it was a tricky day, tricky conditions out there, and we still managed to put everything together and do a good job.
I asked Lando this, and I want to ask you this now. How tricky was it out there for you guys?
Very tricky, especially Q1 with how tight the margins are. A couple of dump patches here and there. To get it together in Q1 was with the pressure was high stress.
How much would it mean to you to win here tomorrow in front of your fans?
It would mean everything, but I also know Max is in a planet of his own, in a league of his own, and we would need a reliability issue or a very big mistake by Red Bull or him in order for us to win tomorrow. If a normal race, I think the podium has to be our target and be best of the rest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we got young race driver Ryan Sheehan in the studio, and I want to ask you, Ryan, you're Carlos Sainz, you're lined up behind Max, who's, arguably the best driver right now and clearly with the best car. Let's say we don't get rain and, if you don't get that start, right, and Max is a pretty good starter as well. I mean, what's in your mind right now if you're Carlos Sainz or anybody else behind Max?
That's tough. Because it's not super clear that if Ferrari have the second best car or not. Kind of just depends.
Yeah.
On, not even the weekend. Just depends on the session. He does have some buffer behind him. With the McLaren, which isn't super quick, and even the Mercedes, I think they're quicker than. So I think he might be able to pull out a pretty decent gap before the likes of, Fernando and Checo can get through the field. So I think he might have a shot of just staying in second, possibly just a boring race for him. Max miles up the road.
I think Ferrari would take a boring race and
definitely
take that second place. I think they would not argue with that. But Lando Norris right behind him. Let's hear from Lando Norris. We've got a clip lined up from him too, because that's a big weekend for McLaren.
The car definitely felt good. We made some small little tweaks, nothing big, but it seems to definitely help the car move in the right direction. The conditions, colder conditions, people just seem to struggle a lot. You see a lot of people locking up and going off, making mistakes, and I never necessarily felt like that. So was just also close. Like I make 1/10 mistake and I'm 5 positions back, and I don't look like as much of a hero as I do now. So many different things that come into it, but in the end the team done a good job with the car. I felt confident with it, and I put in some nice laps, and when you put it together then we get P3.
How tricky was it out there? Because we did see a number of drivers, especially very experienced ones, make some mistakes.
Yeah.
So how tricky was it out there for you?
I'm surprised because I wouldn't say it was that tricky. But the track was quick. 12.3 by Max, 12.7 by me. It was the quickest we've been all weekend by over a second and a bit. I don't know what everyone was struggling with. So I guess it was difficult in Q1 with the wet patch between 10 and 11, where you saw most of the people spin. But the rest of it, I'm not sure.
Eyes on the podium tomorrow?
Absolutely not. Eyes are in my mirrors.
I do like Lando. He's fun to watch and a great personality. And starting third today, and I'm just going to look and see how all this is shuffled up the grid. Obviously, qualifying yesterday, Pierre Gasly was fourth, and now he's down with a sixth place grid penalty for 2 impeding penalties. Dave, first of all, do you agree with both of those penalties after watching qualifying? That he was impeding both drivers and should have been and had these grid penalties?
I was thinking about that last night and went back and watched it. For sure he did. But I think the team has something to answer for in those positions. They have, they're there to help. And certainly with the previous experience I've had it's all about traffic management in those situations, because going quick and getting a decent position is one thing, but also helping your driver get that is another thing. There's so many people looking at it. and the engineer is getting fed the flags and the GPS positions from his performance engineer and also from the factory. So I think, you know, Renault or Alpine have to take some of the blame for that. But did he impede? Yes, he did, unfortunately. And I guess he paid the consequences for it, or they did.
Yeah, and Ryan looked. He and I locked eyes, and I think he agreed it was all the team's fault, right? Right. It's always the team's fault, not the driver.
I mean, it's tough because I think the difference in speed from a cool down lap and a push lap is so massive in Formula One that just your mirrors aren't enough. Especially, you know, in some corners like I think it's turn 3, where you're in it for I mean, a million years, and you can't quite see through the entire turn through your mirrors. So you really have to rely on almost. I mean, it's not a spotter, but your engineer has the GPS and he can tell you how close the cars are behind. And I think that just really, really blew it there.
Yeah. Yeah, mirrors in F1, they don't look very big to begin with. They look tiny. I guess you don't want to have any aero robbed by mirrors, but we do see a lot of that, don't we? We do see a lot of times where the clear visibility is an issue. But let's look down the grid a little bit. After that, we've got qualifying yesterday. We talked about Pierre Gasly, but Lewis Hamilton who's now starting fourth, was fifth in qualifying, and we have a clip from Lewis Hamilton. Let's hear from Lewis.
Interesting, because actually during the session I was thinking, damn, I said yesterday I'm not going to get through to Q3 or into top 10, and I was basically eating all my words, but it was a really, really great session and massively encouraging for us to be so competitive, and I couldn't believe that I was fighting for, you know, the top 3 at one stage, and of course my last lap wasn't the dream lap. I was second basically all the way till turn 10, and I had a snap and lost 2/10. So one side gutted, and another side I'm really grateful just to be up there and be up in the fight and have that pace. So you know, the team did a great job to improve the car, and yeah, we just got to push hard tomorrow for a better result.
What is the goal for tomorrow?
My goal is to win somehow. So that's what I'm going to try. I'm going to drive the wheels off the car and try and get up as high as I can.
Ryan, what are you laughing at when you hear that question?
Nothing. Just
it's because everyone asks you that question when you're about to race. It's like,
yeah.
What's the goal today?
Yeah, I mean, you could be starting on pole and they'll still ask you what the goal is. But I mean, I know it's their job.
Yeah.
So
I have been there and asked that same silly question, but it's all right. And especially with Lewis Hamilton starting where he's starting. And I love the fact that he immediately snapped back that his goal is to win, because if we do get a little rain, that could possibly happen. I'm just taking a look at the TV, and I think we have the same scenario where it's clear and blue sky to the right and clouds to the left still. So we're looking at Nico Hulkenberg. Man, exciting to see your old team looking good this weekend, huh, Dave? With Hulkenberg now starting 7th.
Yeah, great position. They've just got to convert it now. So
have a short clip.
Couple of clean pit stops. You know, if it rains, really important to make that clean, get the wing changes done. Then when it dries out again, and again, you know, the race is going to be tricky. If there is a sprinkle before the start of the race, the gamble is obviously you never fit wets or extreme wets unless it's raining cats and dogs. So, you know, they'll be starting on slicks if it's drizzling. And then from that point, as we saw yesterday in qualifying, you know, Lando's a bit of a politician there. He knows exactly where you have to be careful. That's why, you know, he said, well, I don't know what's happening to everyone, but the curbs at 10 and 11 are really important to stay off. And then you have that little kind of small river that runs through there as well. So there's a lot to keep together in this. This is a very, very tricky race to go into. You know, you heard Gunter earlier how kind of nervous he was about the weather. There's some big calls to make. Like, you know, Ryan will know even with what he does in F3. This is this is the time where you can take full advantage. And again, you need luck, of course, because it's, you don't know what's really going to happen with the weather, if it's going to come in full, or whether you're going to get the drizzle and then it to dry up. And again, you have to make the right calls at the start, the middle and the end, to get it all right. So very exciting as a team when you're sitting there waiting for this to happen. And of course, when you have experience like Hulkenberg, he laps us up because he can take it all, So
Yeah.
he's happy for it. The team are happy for it, and this is where they could get a result.
Yep. All right. Well, coming up, we got to take a quick break. We'll have some more interviews. We'll see what Chris Medland gets for us out in Barcelona. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after these messages. All right. Looks like we're still live on the YouTube stream. Who was that, Ryan Sheehan? Who was that Martin Brundle was just interviewing? Some young movie star or somebody that I didn't recognize?
Absolutely no clue.
Medland was interviewing somebody last week and goes, "Hey, we've got so-and-so, so-and-so." And I was like, I have no idea who that is. When you're out of the demographic. But we're watching.
Someone should invent an app, for the F1 grid walk.
Yeah.
Because
well, they do that. They do that for the media. They send out an email to the people that are on site, and it's a big, huge PDF, and it's got all the pictures of all the stars that they know of that are there. But there's some that may sneak in. But we're watching Brundle do his walk through. I'm looking for Chris. We always spot Medland when the TV's wandering through with the camera. But Kevin Kelly on YouTube just said, "Oh no, is that Norris's car?" And I don't know. KK, what are you referring to? Because I'm just watching the coverage. Let me see if there's anything on Twitter. I don't see any.
What's happened? He said, "Oh no, Norris's car."
Yeah, I don't know what he meant by that. Okay, Ryan, who's that? Who's that young guy that Martin's interviewing? Do you know who that is?
I think it's Neymar.
Oh, yeah, it is Neymar. Okay, there we go. See, that's what I get. I'm not a big soccer fan either.
Did he fall over?
I guess that's a soccer joke. I don't know. A football joke, excuse me. Yeah, so roger that.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60 as the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. We are looking at what Mr. Kelly was talking about. There are some mechanics with the head under the back passenger side of a McLaren, and seeing Kevin Magnussen walk by and put his hand on the camera. And they are working on the car, and we don't know what's happening. I bet you Chris is going to get an update for us. Maybe we can check online and see. But that is not a good sign because we're 20 minutes from the start of the race, and they're working on a McLaren. So, Dave, that's got to be some pressure that you felt before.
Yeah, there's just thinking about it, what you normally find in those situations is it depends how much fuel you have to run or don't have to run. And typically you brim the car, you do your fuel checks, and there's no leaks anywhere. They could have filled the car up. It normally happens in the real hot conditions like Singapore, where you get so much expansion, you get slight fuel leaks. So that could be one thing. It could be a raft of other things, but that's the first thing springs to mind, but doesn't quite add up as it's not that hot there. But anything could have happened. They could be making an adjustment that they've applied to the FIA to do so. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Varsha is not here, and we haven't heard from him because he's on a plane back from Jakarta doing some Formula E for CBS. But I'm going to at least read the grid, run down the grid. I'm not going to do the wonderful job that Mr. Varsha does. And by the way, it was pretty cool when I turned on the television coverage. Bob was doing the grid for Formula E, Dave. It was pretty cool. And I thought he does such a great job of that. But let me just run down the starting grid because we have had some changes as we talked about earlier because of the Gasly impeding penalties. So Max Verstappen on pole once again. I think this was his 24th or 34th. I know it was a fourth, but Max Verstappen on pole. Carlos Sainz right behind him, his best of the season. Lando Norris, haven't seen the McLarens up that high, in third. Lewis Hamilton in fourth on the Mercedes, and Lance Stroll ahead of his teammate. I'm guessing that's the first time this year. We have a clip from him. We'll play that here in a minute. Esteban Ocon in sixth. Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas, starting seventh. That's looking great for the Haas. I had high expectations for the Haas this weekend. I just felt like this was a good track for them. Fernando Alonso down in eighth, which is definitely unusual for him because he made a mistake and damaged his car a little bit in qualifying. So unusual to have Fernando this year down that far. Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren up in ninth. Good job by the McLarens. Two teams in the top 10 to start. Pierre Gasly, after his sixth place penalties after two impeding, down in 10th. Sergio Perez with another disappointing qualifying. Will be interesting to see how quickly he can make it up through the crowd with that speedy Red Bull car. George Russell in the other Mercedes behind Perez in 12th. A little bit disappointing for Mr. Russell there down in 12th. Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo. Good performance from him up in 13th. Nick DeVries in the AlphaTauri in 14th. Yuki Tsunoda in the other AlphaTauri right behind his teammate in 15th. Valtteri Bottas down in 16th in the Alfa Romeo. And in 17th in the other Haas F1, Kevin Magnussen. And then in 18th, Alexander Albon in the Williams, and Charles Leclerc down in 19th after starting from pit lane, as we discussed early in the show, because he swapped some bits out on the Ferrari after having some trouble with the car during qualifying. And Logan Sargent also starting from pit lane at last, our American, with some struggles yesterday, but also some work done on his car, which is why he's starting from pit lane. And double checking, and we don't see Medland. Casey, the producer, have we seen any interviews pop in from Medland? Still waiting on some of those. So we do have some more interviews.
I guess the good bit,
yeah, go
John,
ahead, Dave.
the good bit is Sargent's right beside a Ferrari. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. He'll get to see the Ferrari for at least a little bit before it disappears off into the sunset, right? But we have some good interviews that I wanted to play because if I'm kind of moving down the grid here a little bit, Lance Stroll, who I just talked about, who's starting in fifth, there's a good interview with him, and he starts off this interview with F1 sends us these, and this one was clipped off, but clearly they ask him about starting ahead of Fernando Alonso. Let's hear from Lance Stroll.
Yeah, but he had damage, so I don't think it's relevant. But yeah, I think it was a pretty decent session. It's obviously very tight, a little frustrating looking at how close P2 is. Yeah, I think it's always you always think where you could go a bit faster and find a couple tens to be on the front row. But it was a good effort, and yeah, we're in a good position for tomorrow.
Can you move ahead tomorrow? How confident are you that you can?
Yeah, I think you can always go faster, yeah, hindsight's, a beautiful thing. You can always look at kind of corners and stuff. You could have done a bit better, but there's a lot of opportunity tomorrow. It's a long race, so we'll see what we can do.
Hey, Dave O'Neill, what do you think about the performance of Lance Stroll? There's been any time that your dad's the owner of the team, you're going to get that extra scrutiny, right? And and now with Alonso just setting the world on fire this year. What do you think about Mr. Stroll's performance and even maybe even his potential future?
Well, I think he you could hear it when they said about Alonso. He kind of almost gave up at that point. He didn't get a good lap, so I think that they have a beautiful relationship, the father and son there, and I think he's there for a good time and probably a long time as well. But he does a decent job now and again. You have to give it to him. He does. He does. He just needs to string them together a bit more to be able to put some decent points together for a championship and stay with his teammate. And of course, if you're not having two drivers on the same planet, it's very difficult to develop a car. So this is what they'll be hoping for: is Lance to get closer to Fernando. But of course, as Fernando is going to be charging through today, Lance is going to have to move out the way for sure.
Yeah. All right. It looks like we have Chris Medland back on the microphone. Chris, we were watching the Martin Brundle television wander, and we kept looking for you. We didn't spot you through there, but how's it going over there?
Oh, it was hectic, I tell you. That was a very packed grid. I was amazed, actually. Like, Monaco was busy. It was just as tightly packed, just as many big names. Yeah, very, very hectic. But right now, I mean, I'll do the weather update first. It's clouded over a bit more. Like, when I was on the grid, I thought, oh, no, it's not going to rain. Now I still can't tell. But I managed to grab a few different interviews. I'm not sure how many cases you'll be able to queue up because I dropped the Wi-Fi and sent them all at once. I know we're just talking about Lance Stroll, though. I did try and grab a word with him, and he said no yesterday. He said no again today. But he was one of the few drivers that stayed on the grid. He was hiding, sort of crouched down by the pit wall under an umbrella to stay out the sun, but just getting in the zone. And yeah, he's got a real good chance today from fifth because he's on the clean side of the grid as well. To do something from there. So I think he'll be looking to maybe attack Norris like very early on. And interestingly, so maybe if Casey can queue up Zach Brown first, if possible, it was Lando Norris that was really the car that was catching my eye because I suddenly saw a lot of commotion around the back of his car and McLaren mechanics going to work on the right rear corner. So I imagine maybe if we need a bit of time to get a quick break in and then we can come back and maybe hear what Zach Brown had to say because he did explain what was going on, but the drama seems to have subsided.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's sneak a break in and then we'll hear from, start with Zach Brown. You listen to Speed City F1, back after a quick break. Okay, we're still live on the YouTubes. Don't let me forget to do the other CrowdStrike when I come back. And I was looking at, Ryan's got his dad in the studio, and I was going, okay, Lawrence Stroll bought a Formula One team. Come on, Doug. What's the problem, dude? Come on. Let's see. Let me check some YouTube.
And a stake in a car company, not just an F1.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah. Hey, what's going on with Lando Norris's car? I forgot to ask you.
So yeah, I got Zach to explain it.
Okay.
A lot of work going on the right rear corner, but it was just repairing a damaged part that they say was from qualifying. But I was stood next to Joe Bauer, who was kind of inspecting the repairs that were running. But they seemed happy enough with it. He seemed calm enough. So I don't think any major dramas in terms of the car being ready to go.
Okay. All right. Good. I wanted to see Lando be able to do some battling up there. We got the usual suspects on YouTube right now. Watching the TV. Yeah, Chris, it was exactly as you were saying. We were looking at the TV, but right now it does look dark all the way around you, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like it doesn't look dark, but it looks cloudy all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. And the wind's picked up. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest. I got Mario Isola, who did mention what their forecast said, which was 40% of chance of rain. But he talks about what it's going to do for the tyres with the cloud cover or the sun and the difference that will make too.
Oh, that's good. That's right. I see you got Horner, Zach Brown, Mario Isola, and Mason Mount and England. Thank you for that. We were talking about that while you were away. It's like last week you had some younger movie star, and you said his name, and I had no idea who it was. So I was Googling it before you finished the interview, so I at least know who the heck you were talking about. Hey, they're showing Lance Stroll right now. He's got a serious look on his face. Coming back.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, Chris Medland's with us, and he just caught up with Zach Brown. So let's hear from Mr. Brown right now.
Yeah, I've got Zach Brown with me. We're looking at the rear of Lando Norris's car. A lot of work going on, Zach. What's happening here?
Yeah, it's all sorted. We're good.
Oh, and what was it? Just a damaged component?
Yeah, a little bit of an issue from qualifying, but the boys got it repaired, so ready to race.
Yeah, it looks a lot calmer than when I walked by 2 minutes ago, so that looks good. And it's clouding over again. We can't tell what's going to happen with the weather. I mean, I guess you're hoping for rain.
Hoping for rain, or at least the cloud cover. It feels like it just got about 10 degrees cooler.
Yeah, so can you target a podium today? Realistically, what would you be happy with today?
I mean, both cars in the points is where we want to start and get as close up as possible. Third was an awesome qualifying result. It's going to be tough to hang on to it, but we're certainly going to try.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Yesterday about the McLarens may like the cooler temperature, so we'll see how that plays out. Hey, Chris, you got Christian Horner. You want to introduce that one?
Yeah, I had to wait around for a little bit because he was talking to the boss of ExxonMobil, who I believe is a very big player actually in American circles as well. So he was having a good old chat there for a while, so I made sure not to interrupt. But when I got hold of him, he was half watching the weather as well. Christian, we're stood here and it's baking actually in the sun, but we're looking at the grey clouds over there. What are your forecasts telling you?
Well, look, there's some rain not too far, about 10 minutes away, but it's breaking up quite quickly. So will it hit the track or not? That's what we're waiting to see.
I guess you don't want anything like that to throw a curveball in, though, with how quick Max has been.
Well, the weather's probably the biggest, one of the biggest variables we've got today. So it's important we're sharp on the strategy, get a good start, and then run our own race.
And for Checo, could he get through to second? The car looks great here when it's dry conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the car's been running fantastically well all weekend, but we saw it in F2 and F3. It's pretty tricky to overtake. But these high-speed corners are going to put a lot more energy into the front tyres, so degradation could be a big issue.
Long run of turn one, though, is that really the key for Max's race, just staying into the lead into there?
That's part one.
What's part two?
Well, it's strategy, weather, you name it. There's several parts to this race.
We'll see how it goes. Thank you very
much. Yeah, and speaking of rain, Chris, you caught up with Mario Isola?
I did indeed. I'm stood outside right now, and he's just gone back inside. So I grabbed him out on the grid, and yeah, it was in that middle part. So these were actually between the Horner and Brown interviews, where it was sunny when I was talking to Horner, and then it clouded over by the time I got Zach Brown. So Mario was also saying, like, not too sure. Ciao, Mario. We're being drowned out by a Red Bull engine firing up right now, but there we go. It's nice and quiet for us. We've got dark clouds in the distance, but sunshine right now, and it looks like it might stay sunny. I mean, what's this going to do for the strategy if it's this warm during the race?
Yeah, it should be dry because there is a 40% chance of rain. We know how quick it can change. The point is that the teams are probably reacting to this situation. We said the soft is the ideal tire to start the race because you have additional grip. But if you want more flexibility in order to move the pit stop window, considering the weather, maybe they start on the medium or the hard. At the moment, it's difficult to make any prediction. Soft, hard was the quickest on paper, but now also starting on hard, it's an option.
Is a 3 stops an option, especially with this heat?
3 stops is as quick as 2 stops. So if there is any uncertain condition, they can also switch on the 3 stop using, it's quite aggressive because you have to use 3 sets of soft and 1 set of hard, but it's a possibility.
And I'm asking everyone, but what are your forecasts saying? You think we're going to get any rain, or are you banking on a dry race?
We have the same system used by the teams with Made of France. They said no rain in the next 30 minutes, but 40% chance of rain at the beginning of the race.
I'll be interested to watch it play out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody has to try their best job at weatherman right before a Formula One race. And Chris, you caught up with somebody, I have no idea who it was, Mason Mount. I'm sure I'm the only one in the room who doesn't know who Mason Mount is.
No, I think this is maybe a bit more of a personal interview, this one, because he's an England footballer, so soccer player, who I had to promise I wouldn't ask about his future because he's in the middle of some transfer speculation right now. In the same way that Adele Beckham Jr. turned me down on the grid in Monaco for that same reason, I think, to ask about his footballing future. So, yeah, Mason is just it's always interesting to get another superstar from a different sports perspective on F1 on the grid.
Oh, good.
I've got Mason Mount with me, Chelsea and England footballer, and stood in front of Max Verstappen's car. I believe you're a guest of Red Bull this weekend?
Yeah, with Red Bull. Amazing team. They look after me for the last 3 races I've been to. So, yeah, amazing to be here. I love it. I love these events. I love coming. So, yeah, hopefully it's a good one. And Max obviously starting in pole, so hopefully he can win today. And obviously Checo as well. I know he's a bit further back, but yeah, really looking forward to watching him hopefully come through the pack.
Yeah, and a lot of your teammates here as well. I mean, what's it like? I'm interviewing you just before the race on the grid, but you don't have to worry about racing. I guess you don't get this sort of dynamic in football. Can you imagine what it's like being a driver amid all of this chaos?
I know, yeah. It's totally different, obviously, to football. We don't have people coming into the dressing room before a game asking us questions or videoing us. So it's mentally, I think you have to be prepared, and they look like they are. Some of them are sitting down over there, kind of just having a moment, and there's a lot going on, and I mean it must be very hard to kind of concentrate, but they do a great job, and yeah, I can see how hard it could be.
Yeah, it's very impressive what they do, and very impressive what you do as well. So great work with England.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
Had to get that in as an Englishman on American radio, didn't I?
Enjoy the free tickets, Chris, to his next soccer game.
I wish.
All right. Hey, we have a clip that I want to play because we have a clip from Fernando Alonso, who struggled yesterday, and he made a mistake actually in qualifying. So this interview was right after qualifying yesterday.
Yeah, it was not the easiest qualifying. Everything was a little bit, compromised by the outlap of Q1, where I went off in the last corner, touching a damp part of the circuit. So yeah, after that, I think we had a little bit of damage on the car, and we didn't seem to pick up the pace from that moment. So yeah, not our best Saturday. Let's hope for a good Sunday.
As you said, hope for a good Sunday. Points are scored tomorrow. What can you do from P9? Can you move forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have more pace than P9, so let's see what we can do. Some fast cars also behind us. I think Checo, Russell. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting race. It may rain as well, so anything can happen.
Yeah, on the plus side, you've seen the fans in attendance this weekend. A lot of them supporting you. What does that mean to you? How's this weekend felt to you?
Yeah, it is amazing. From Thursday, I've been saying the same thing, so you can listen to whatever comment from the previous days.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's that time of the show where we talk about our predictions, and I'm smiling at young Ryan Sheehan, who's an Austin-based race driver racing in the FR Americas, currently 4 points out of the championship. And we're going to talk to you in the post-race show too, Ryan, but you're on the precipice. I mean, if you could win this championship, this could put you, it comes with a scholarship to the Super Formula in Japan.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But now the pressure's really on because you get to predict your predictions for the Spanish Grand Prix.
Top 3?
Top 3.
Well, I think number 1 is sorted. I think Verstappen, he had it in the bag before he even woke up this morning. So
yeah.
I'm still debating if Sainz can hold on. I don't know how, because I mean, it seems like sometimes Checo can move through like butter, but sometimes it takes a bit longer. So I'll say Sainz in second and Checo third.
I think that's a pretty safe prediction. And I'm going to go to Chris Medland because he's got the cheat because he's on site with the potential weather. Chris, what's your prediction, buddy?
I am, yeah. I'm looking at the clouds that are coming in over a different part of the circuit now. So it's still grey all around. I'm going to go Verstappen to win. I'm going to go Hamilton in second and Perez third. It would have been Alex Albon because he told us about it yesterday, didn't he? But it's not going to snow. Sadly, that's not going to happen.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time. Dave, give us a quick prediction.
Alonso, Max, Hamilton.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. All right, I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to go Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen. I don't know why I chose that. I'm just figuring what the heck, there's nothing left. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Chris Medland, did a great job out there. Thanks, Dave O'Neill and Ryan Sheehan. Of course, stick here right for the race itself, and then after the race, our full 1 hour post-race show. We'll talk to you after the race.